What up, everybody? Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday to everybody. It's your boy, Daniel Ball. This is the Grid and Grind Show brought to you by the Off the Bench podcast. And today we are talking Palm Beach Breakers with, an interesting story. We got a married couple on the same team. I don't know how they do it, but they're on the same team. We're going to talk to Josh and Shay Newell of the Palm Beach Breakers, United Grid League stars. But before we get their story and talk to them, got some business to attend to. We got our sponsors, and I want to say of the 500 guests that we've had, our sponsors have been there the whole way. I want to show love and appreciate them for all that they do. But also, it's the holiday season. What better way to show your appreciation for them than to pick up some goods for your loved ones? You got Chinook Cedary, whether you're on the field or in the boardroom signing deals, Chinook helps you get the job done. Memphis City Design, get your brands, gear, and logos on everything from shoes to underoos. You can get your off the bench gear while supplies last. Relief Chiropractic, go see my boy, Dr. Vic Robinson. Let me tell you, he's got magic hands. He's got the touch. He's got it all. He's rejuvenating people. He's adding years to their lives. I promise you, if you go see him, you're not going to be disappointed. And finally, Old Dominick Distillery. Experience 150 years of tradition in the heart of downtown Memphis, from bourbon to vodka, whiskey to gin. Old Dominick's got you covered. Stop in today for a tour or to pick up your favorite bottle. It's holiday party season. It's New Year's party season. Don't come empty-handed. Stop by Old Dominick's. Go online, order you a couple bottles, and be the life of the party. Bring the Christmas spirit. And with that, the bills have been paid. The business has been attended to. So let's get to the show. Help me welcome on with the biggest interview in podcasting this week, Palm Beach Breaker stars, Josh and Shay Newell. Josh, Shay, how we doing today? What's up?
Good. How are you?
We're good, man. We're good.
I am blessed. It's another day, and my feet hit the floor when I got up out of bed. So that's the win. That's the win for sure. But with that, obviously, we're going to talk about Grid. We're going to talk about this season and what's popping for next season. But I wanted to start, with, a little bit of your backstory, because, when I'm doing some research, I'm seeing a lot of athletes, and this is a good thing, athletes that are not necessarily living in the areas of the teams that they're playing for. I'm in Tampa, and the Brigade is the team that's local to me, and there's players that don't live in the Tampa area. So I ask you, and I'll start with you, Josh, man, where are you from? Where do you guys live right now?
From Tuscumbia, Alabama, Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
I'm from Florence, Alabama. So
same area. It's all one big conglomerate. And grew up here. I moved off for college for a little while, and then came back here. So been here ever since.
So Alabama.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
Born and raised. I mean, I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, so I'm not too far from Alabama.
Oh no,
No, we're as close. We're as close to you in Tennessee, as close to where you used to live as you could be. Top left corner up there.
Yeah, we love Memphis. We go to Memphis a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, I tell people I love Memphis, and I'm glad I got out, but it's always going to be home to me for whatever reason.
I worked there for about 5 years, so it was I loved it there. So
it's an interesting place. It's an interesting place for sure. But I want to get into how obviously you guys are married, and Shay, I'll get the story from you, because I feel like I don't it's holiday season, and I don't want Josh missing any parts of this and having to sleep on the couch, and like it just be an awkward situation for the holidays. So I'll ask you, Shay, because I know you got the answers.
Okay.
How do you guys meet, and have you been together for a while? Like, how does this go down? Because I'm trying to paint the picture of how this is gonna go once you get to the part of the story where you're on the same grid team.
Yeah. So we met at a gym, naturally, of course.
Shocker.
Yeah. However, we were in two total different, I guess you could say, like, aspects of the gym. He was, a coach that coached like fitness classes, and I actually coached dance classes. So he actually tells the story better than I do. He came and took one of my dance classes.
Get it.
I'll fill in the little part she's talking about. I took one of her dance classes, and as I usually tell people, I was coaching weightlifting at the time. And always say she dropped it low one time with her hands up. And I said, I bet that girl could snatch. And so I recognized the mobility and I said, hey, we got an opportunity here purely from a coaching athlete perspective. There was no
Yeah,
100%. It
purely.
was. I promise. If you knew my mindset at the time, I promise it was.
Yeah,
But
I can attest to that. It
uh,
was truly just a coach athlete relationship when
uh,
we first started
yeah,
working
but
together.
so that was the beginning of me coaching her in weightlifting, and then from that like 6 month period of us basically working one-on-one sessions every day, we developed this like just chemistry that it was foolish not to move forward to the next step. So
Yeah.
so it was a blessing. It was a big blessing for me in my life at that point. I had a lot of stuff going on, and that was a big turning point for me that kind of steered me back to where I am now versus I was at a point where I was ready to like move to Barcelona and start a new life. Like so it steered me back into this realm and I'm really thankful for it. So
I was his first athlete. He's a great coach, but I get to say I was his first athlete. So that's really special for me.
right.
Number one on the roster, but also number one in his heart. Like
Yes,
you can't
absolutely.
beat that, man.
You can.
Um, it's interesting, Josh, that you talk about being in a place where you needed her. And a lot of people can resonate with that. I know everybody goes through points in their life where they have this like catalytic moment where rejuvenates them and starts them down a different road that is opposite of where they were going. And when they look back on it and reflect, it's like, I'm so glad that that happened. And so it's nice and refreshing to hear like you were in a situation where you needed her and that's what got this thing going. So, having that kind of, mindset moving forward, it gives me a really good indication of the strength of your relationship, but also your mindset as a coach. Like you're doing things the right way, you're doing things for the right reasons. So I tip my hat to you for that. But I do want to get into obviously the grid portion of this, because
Mhm.
you know evolution of grid has been something that has been like this weird roller coaster situation. It's got some fluidity to it, but it's now a little bit stable in my opinion. Over the past couple years, Mather and Ruby taking over have really done a good job to stabilize the sport and put it in a trajectory where I think it's going to go places. But in the beginning, starts as MPGL on this high, a lot of money thrown at it, high stage, big stage, and then it fails.
Mhm.
You then turn it into a very regional thing, the Florida Grid League, and it now is the United Grid League. And you've got, 9 current teams that are vying for the spot to be the best in grid. And the thing is I see the evolution going from this large stage to regional, and now it's starting to branch out and it's becoming a more national brand because now you're getting a team that's going to be starting the new season in 2025, the Houston Bandits, but also there's talks of another team that could be popping up in a different place outside of Florida on top of the Atlanta team that's already in the league. And
Right.
so, you know, Josh, I'll start with you. Just being a coach and, being in the realm for such a long time, you're a part of grid, you're an athlete. What do you think about this evolution? Like, is this very promising? Is it cautionary? Like, how do you look at the growth here?
Oh, it's super promising. Just the nature of the sport, I think, lends itself to a lot of growth and a lot of widespread movement because you have a sport that is primarily an online platform. So, like, even as far as the teams go, like I said, we live in Alabama. We have a team popping up in Houston, and some of those players are going to be Houston natives, Texas natives, and then some of those players are going to be remote. And even in the state of Texas, you got 9 hours you can drive in each direction,
Yeah.
and still not be out of Texas. So, you can be on a team and still interact with all those players, and then you don't have like home games or away games. We all meet in the same place and we play together, so I don't have to fly to Houston or Las Vegas, or I do have to fly to Florida maybe if that's where the location is, but we're all coming together to do that in one's place. So and then with the primary platform being online viewership, you're not having to ask your fans to fly all over the place to go to that. We have a huge following in Brazil. Go figure. Like, not us, but the grid has
Yeah.
a large following in Brazil. Now, are those people going to be able to fly up to a match? Maybe, maybe not, but they're always going to be able to watch on an online platform. And with online platform and streaming being monetized, you have an avenue where you can at least grow the sport to a certain level. And then maybe you get to the point where, I don't know if we'll ever be Madison Square Garden big, but maybe you get to the point where you can host some of these events in venues and be like, all right, this is just a grid event. We're not as part of an expo now. We are, here is the grid
Yeah.
championships. Maybe it's such a regional event to where you have the East Coast grid, West Coast grid. If you keep branching out and expanding, I could see this becoming multiple conferences, multiple regional grids, just like the Florida Grid League. And then you take your champions, and that's how the AFL and NFL and AFC, NFC was built. It can be built that way. It's a long game, but I really see the potential of it. I'm all in. Like, I'll be backing it until the wheels fall off. So
Well, I mean, it's obviously you own a gym, so like fitness is a passion, and fitness comes in many different forms. As you know, like your love started with a fitness passion of dance. Like you didn't know that, but here we are, and Shay, with you having a dance background and then getting into weightlifting, was grid a natural like kind of progression, or were you apprehensive to go I don't know
No.
if that's for me?
Actually, I had no expectations of playing grid ever at all. I didn't do the trials. I didn't try out. I did not. I actually didn't even follow grid until recently, like probably a year or two ago, because Joshua has been a big follower of it, and it's always been kind of like his dream to be in the grid, and we always kind of just had this like, I don't want to say it's like a running joke, but like we always just kind of talked about, hey, like if you want to do this, you could actually go and do this. Like you would be good at it.
yeah.
He's always wanted to do it. I never had any intentions of playing grid. So it's kind of funny to me that I'm now on a grid team. So, because I did not expect to play at all this season.
So walk me through this conversation. Like how does it go? Like, hey, Shay, you're strong, you're doing great in weightlifting. I think you should be a part of grid, knowing it's something like you're not like that's not the direction that you're looking at the current moment. Like how does he persuade you? Because to me, it seems like he's pretty persuasive so far in this.
No,
It
actually,
wasn't me, actually.
actually,
Oh,
it wasn't Joshua that
Yeah.
persuaded me. Joshua actually, when he, of course, did the trials and immediately got offered to a team, which we knew he would because
I didn't know I would.
his strength is pretty up there. He's
I
a
was
pretty good
hoping I
strength
would,
specialist.
but
We knew he was going to get offered to a team pretty quickly. So the owner of the Palm Beach Breakers, they of course signed him, and I guess found me through off of his Instagram. And I mean, I post all of my workouts and stuff like that on my account, and so I guess they did a little digging into my account and said, if you would like to play, we can sign you. And my thought was, okay, well, at first of all, I said no. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I was ready for it. I didn't think I was good enough to play. So I was just like, no, I'm not going to do this. So they were like, well, okay, so how about you just like sign with us and just be like an extra body, just in case we need you. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to be at all the matches anyways because Joshua's going to be there. So yeah, like I'll just be an extra body in case, the worst happens and we need somebody to fill in. And that was not the case. I ended up playing a lot this season. So
I mean,
I was very surprised. I had to call I have a personal coach. I'm coached by Micah Shoemaker, and he's been my coach for about 3 years now. And I had to call him before before I signed, because I was like, I don't know if I'm crazy. Am I prepared for this? Can we get through this? Like, can we switch my programming over to like get me ready for grid? And me and Micah kind of joked about it, and we were like, well, it's my rookie season. I'm probably not going to play a lot anyways. So, because I was super nervous, I was like, I do not want to play, because I just truly did not think I was good enough or ready for this at all. So,
it's the same thing that happens to a lot of people when they see CrossFit and they're like, "Oh, this is interesting," but they just don't have like it's the fear. Like they got to get over the fear
yes.
to go in there and actually
Yes.
realize like the working out, like the intensity is what it is, but there's a lot more to it than that. So
Right.
being on the support side of things and then transitioning into actually being a player, and then transitioning from not just being a person who might play on the roster to I'm in matches on a regular basis,
Yeah.
like that is crazy. That's an amazing story,
Yeah.
and Josh, I asked you, did you think that going in, did you in the back of your mind, you may not have told her this at the time, but did you go, I foresee her like being able to contribute at some point
Oh
just
yeah.
because I know her strength, I know what she's good at.
No, my original thoughts on it were, she was nervous about signing up, and I said, "Well, it's a long season, and you think, oh, I'm not ready right now." I said, "But we have 4 matches, and by match 3 and 4, it may be that you're a lot more confident and a lot better at a lot of this stuff." I said, "It's all new to you right now, so of course you're not going to feel ready to go." And she's a utility player. I'm a strength specialist. My ability to lift heavy things is my ability to lift heavy things. There's no, I said, but a lot of these utility skills, you can learn them and you can adjust the intensity, you can get better at this stuff. And she was real nervous about that idea. but as usual, when I'm patient about that kind of stuff and I tell her, I'm usually right in the end. She doesn't get that, but she did wind up being a lot more valuable. And it was super duper easy. It's like, go ahead and sign. You're going to be there anyways. And I knew she would work hard. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And that's our biggest key, um, moving forward on this next season too, is to find people who will do that, because you can take someone who has a little bit of struggle with like imposter syndrome, or maybe they're not ready for certain things. And if they'll commit to 3 to 4 months of in-season work, they can become a very valuable player. And she's a great example of that. We have proof positive, like sitting right here next to me, of like, hey, this was just a regular CrossFitter who can do really well at certain competitions if the workouts fall in their favor. And now here she is able to play meaningful minutes on the grid match. So, you know,
It's a testament to like the training that you put in, because you're doing such all-encompassing type training, especially, I don't want to, specifically narrow it down to CrossFit, because there's a lot more to CrossFit and being
Mm.
a really good at grid than just being a good CrossFit athlete. But being in that space helps you really do a lot of different things. And to me, when you're lifting heavy weight on a regular basis, like the confidence level in trying new things is immediately, the baseline starts a lot higher. So like
Mhm.
once you get into it, you're like, I know that I can do this, as opposed to I
Yeah.
can't do this.
Yeah.
um but Shay, was this your first season?
Hmm.
it was both of our first season.
Both of our
Wow.
seasons.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, looking back at the matches and some of the footage and the clips, like you wouldn't guess it. It's like you guys have been vets at this, and it's
Oh, our
probably a lot
team,
to do with the background. You got a lot
Yeah.
of weightlifting training and stuff going in.
our team had our rookies were
Our team
so
was almost all rookies.
we had a lot. Yeah. I mean, we had Reese Lyons that he probably should be up for bodyweight specialist of the year.
Yeah.
Without him, I don't know how we how we make it through some of these matches and his Bethany Jackson, our other, bodyweight specialist on the female side, is tremendous. She just struggled with injury all year. So Reese had to pick up a lot of different things, more workload. And Evan Newman, that came on as a result of us. He's good friends with us and lives here in Alabama. He's got potential to be an MVP in the sport. He's dynamic, unbelievable. We had so many rookies.
So many
that
good
played a
rookies
part.
this year.
I don't want to not mention anybody's name, but like just right off the bat, we had people that were just working hard and wanted it. So it was a really good rookie class. I'm happy to have been a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
When people talk about it, they're like, "Yeah, we had good rookies." I'm like, "Yeah, that's us. we worked hard for that." Like, so
When
I'm
I
happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, when I talked to Matt Hornaday, this was prior to the playoffs. I went into, and we'll recap the season a little bit, but when I was talking to him about just the season, one of the things that he prided himself on was the rookies being able to step up and really grind and really like commit to the process and work really hard. He felt as though because of that, moving to the off season and into 2025, like he felt as though like Palm Beach Breakers were in a very, very good spot,
Mm-hmm.
just because of that reason of those rookies buying in and getting after it. And so, it's just validation of what you're saying when the coach is saying the same things. So I start with you, Shay, and looking back at the 2024 season, obviously the start of it wasn't anything near probably what you expected, but now that it's over, like, what was your thought on the season as a whole? Was it a net positive? Was it a net neutral? Was it a net negative? Like, how do you look at wins and losses and playoffs and championships as being the metric, but really, I don't know if a rookie can look at those metrics and go, this wasn't successful or it was successful.
So of course I have, like, you take into account we as the Palm Beach Breakers only won one match this whole season. And it was our very last match. So that's kind of hard. So that kind of like puts a little bit of a damper on like how I viewed the season. But then again, when I think back to like where we first started after our first race, I don't think our first match was a true testament of what our team could do. I think we just had a lot of kinks that we had to work out, and we did. By the end of the season, I feel like the Palm Beach Breakers looked like a total different team than the start. And so that's just that's one of the positives that I take out of it a lot, is because we really came together. And like you said before, none of us really live in the same area. Like, we had lots of people from all over I mean, we had a girl in California on our team. So we really came together as a team and practiced, learned how to run the races, especially being a team full of rookies. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. And by the end of the season, I think we were a pretty different team by the end of the season. So
Yeah, so much so I think the Sharks mold us, man. I think they sent us they gave us a helper. I think he tanked us on purpose, man. No,
Man,
we were super happy to have him, but nobody
yeah.
wanted us in the playoffs. That's all I'll
yeah.
say. I think
No,
it would have been bad news. So,
yeah, it's when it clicks, that's
Yeah.
when you know that it's very like you're a dangerous team once it starts clicking.
Yeah.
And in a new sport and a sport like grid, it's hard for rookies to come out the gate and like have it figured out, and
Mhm.
most don't. And so
Right.
it doesn't surprise me that it took some time to kind of get your footing and get the understanding and get the transitions down, because when you look at wins and losses, I say losses, but winning a race over another team, it's really comes down to a matter of like seconds and even
Oh yeah.
less than that at times. And so when you look at that now, it's movement efficiency, because I believe every person that comes on the grid in whatever movement they're asked to do, they're confident in the fact that they can do that. It's
Right.
just who is more efficient. And
mhm.
that's sometimes even tougher to swallow than actually like going, oh, well, at least I lost because I knew I couldn't do this. It wasn't because I wasn't as efficient. So,
Right.
Josh, I'll ask you, when you look back on the season, what's your takeaway?
Similar. I definitely think that we exceeded expectations, even though we probably landed exactly where we were like polled to land. At the like power rankings at the beginning of the season. I do think the beginning of the year, our first match, we had a lot of execution errors, but as in any sport, that's part of the match. So I can't just be like, oh, we should have won if we had executed. Well, executions and grid is a large part of the sport. So that's part of it. You don't get a pass and get to say, we're the better team. Execution's part of your game plan and part of your teamwork. So you have to do that. If you make faults, I had 2 back squat faults in that match that might have won us that match. We had some other errors. One of the things with our rookies and veterans that got better throughout the season a lot was our veterans really couldn't even perform to their maximum abilities because they were so worried about keeping the rookies on task. So that dynamic changed so much throughout the year. Because at the beginning, it's like, all right, well, these guys got to make sure we're all doing our job. Well, that takes away from their ability to focus and execute as well as they possibly could when we start out. And then as the season goes on, that just gets better and better and better. We start to get more confidence. So they stop worrying about what we're doing. They can focus on what they're doing. We're doing what we're doing well
Yeah.
instead of making errors ourselves. I thought that by the end of the year, we were a formidable opponent. We just had a couple of areas where like it's tough to overcome, like overall depth and strength in depth was an issue for our team. Like we just didn't have the numbers. Like some of these teams had 8 people deep on each side of the roster, and we were usually struggling to field a 6
Just
or
the
7
feel
person
six.
team.
Yeah.
And so when you got a new person filling that 6th body every time, it's tough to bring that person in and get them on board and get them up to speed on the game plan. And then even if you can do that, are they going to be as good as somebody on the other side who's been actively practicing for 2 months on this thing? So that was tough, but and then just overall strength, like the matches I thought throughout the year got progressively heavier. So like the workload and like mirrors and ladders got heavier and heavier, and we were a bit more of a utility based team. We had a lot of utility, some good gymnastic skills, but we struggled to go deep down the roster on strength. So we
And a strength
yeah,
specialist.
so we struggled in like mirror and ladder a lot throughout the year, just from not having as many bodies that could hit those numbers. And
Yeah.
that's that we had it originally on paper. We had those people. We struggled with some injuries at the beginning of the year. Um, I think we lost 2 strength specialists on the female side. We lost a couple of guys that didn't wind up being able to commit to the team. I was supposed to be like the 3rd strongest player on our guys' side, so we lost a couple of big guys to begin the year. So we had those things in place. So there was an effort to do that, and just that's the way the grid season works. Sometimes it's a very intense sport. You have injuries. It takes a lot of commitment from travel, so sometimes that happens where you can't do that, and so you have to be ready to step up. And just the problem is when you step up from middle of the chain to the front, then the person in the back has to become the middle, and your depth just doesn't match up with teams who didn't have to do that. If they got fortunate and they had the same 7 bodies all year long that they plan to have, it's tough to overcome a team like that. So I thought we did really well considering the adversity we faced personally.
Yeah, the war of attrition is I mean, that's a killer in all sports.
Yeah.
Trying to stay healthy, and even more so than in a sport like grid, because it's so dynamic and there's weight components and it's complex movements to some degree, and it's, hey, you've got to move fast.
Yep.
When you combine all those things together, I wouldn't say that when you do it effectively, it is as safe as you could possibly do. But there is a level of injury that can occur. I mean, just like with basketball, you cut or plant a wrong way, or even like when you jump in the air, like you don't know what you're landing on when you come down when there's 9 other bodies that are surrounding you. So it gets crazy, and so you have to have a level of depth in the sport to be able to carry on, and really, like you said, when you do have injuries, you got to have enough depth to fill the holes to where you're not at a deficit. Because in a sport where time and efficiency matters, like you got to the next man up or the next woman up is like a real thing, and they have to be just as good as the person that they're replacing, or you definitely will see a deficit.
Right.
Yeah. But Shay, you guys, did you guys get a chance to go to Las Vegas?
We did. Yeah, we
All
went to
right.
Vegas.
So how was that? Talk me through that. You guys both go to Vegas. Obviously, you weren't too much affected, I don't think, with trying to get out of
No.
Alabama, but
Mm-mm.
a lot of the players were. So you get there and it's not as, as it was drawn up to be. And
Mhm.
so there's some decisions that are made on the league, which I think were phenomenal decisions, to carry on and make the matches as meaningful as possible, but also give people a chance once it's all said and done, prior to the playoffs, to be able to make up those matches and compete and have a fair shot of having a 4 seed, playoff system that is fair and equitable.
Yeah.
But you get there, and is it a business trip? Is it a personal trip? Is it a little bit of both? Like, what is the expectation when you get to a place like Vegas to compete? Because I know
Um,
me, like my mindset, like I would have to get right.
yeah. So Vegas was a big weekend for us. Vegas was our 1 year married anniversary. So
Oh, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
what
go.
better way to
Congrats.
spend our one year than on the grid? So Vegas was a little bit of I say every trip that we take for grid is a little bit of pleasure for me because I just love trips. So I think Joshua was probably more in the grid mind zone, and I was just kind of like, where are we gonna go eat after we play our match today?
That's that's my question. Anytime I go, what are we eating? Like I
Yeah.
don't what's
Yeah.
what's for dinner? That's
Yeah.
the biggest question.
Yeah.
Um so you get there, you get to compete. It's we talked, I think, having these areas, that people can create this trip out of, especially from a viewer standpoint. If
Mhm.
you're a fan of grid and you're not an athlete on a team, but you like the sport, having a spot like Vegas is key because people can make a trip out of it. They can go to watch grid and they can see all of the teams there, not just one or two, like for a home match or whatever. They can see all the teams compete, so they can see their favorite athletes, their favorite teams,
Right.
and it's a destination place that people want to go. So with that, Josh, are you expecting more of these type of events as grid evolves, possibly in the 2025 season, or you still think it's going to be a lot similar to the regular season format that they had this season?
I would love to see more events like that. I think it's very natural. If we can, piggyback into like expo spaces and stuff like that, like going with it'd be great. The season doesn't line up for it, but I would love to have grid at the Arnold in Columbus, Ohio. But that would put the season, that's always in March, and that
Yeah.
would be such a tough. Maybe we could organize one year like a preseason type thing. Maybe maybe we could do like a showcase or something, or send a couple of teams up there if we could. But I do think there's a spot for grid at like the Arnold would be the only big expo missing. But that's having Orlando as like a place where a lot of this stuff happens is great because the fans can come make a trip. Like everybody can make a trip out of Orlando. There's
Yeah,
so much to do there. Beautiful weather almost always, pending it's not during hurricane season, which I think the league's trying to like slither their way forward on the calendar and get out of that.
Yeah.
So there
the
should be
problem
some
the
some good
problem with
ones.
that is, man, is it seems like, and I've lived in Florida since 2006, and so it seems like hurricane season perpetually gets longer and longer
Year round.
every
Yeah.
year. And
Yeah.
it's like we
Yeah.
had a hurricane out, like it was Thanksgiving, and like there's like storms floating out there, and I'm like, what are we
Yeah.
talking about here?
Yeah.
So like we can do a lot of things technologically in this country, but one thing we can't do is determine drones in New Jersey, what's going on with those, or predict a weather pattern. So, you know, these are problems that I stay up at night thinking about. But
Yeah, we're just
any
gonna have to find like a central, some type of central location where we can have like a fallback or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Atlanta. Maybe that's Atlanta's not too far. Maybe drivable for the Florida peeps if we had to. Um,
yeah,
maybe we could get something like that going where there's like a fallback area and a place we could do events if we had to. But I thought they did an amazing job this year of organizing what they did. And I know they're doing a great job of finding venues and finding expos and things that we can use to get our name out there because it's working. I mean, just quite
Yeah.
frankly. So
I think Vegas was so great for Grid, and I'm so thankful that we actually got to go through with it and have the matches in Vegas, regarding all of the craziness that went on and some people couldn't make it out there. I'm really thankful we got to do that because at that expo there were so many people in the fitness industry there, and it was really nice for them to kind of get to see this side of the fitness industry, like Grid and stuff like that. So that's really cool. I always we go to the Arnold every year almost for weightlifting, and my favorite thing when we go there is watching all the other different sports, like all the sports that you may not even know about. So I think Vegas was so great. I'm so glad we got to go and do that.
I love, like, from just a person who attends like a conference or an
Mhm.
expo, or I love those, a convention, like, just because, like, you get so many, like, vendors. Like, I used to
Mhm.
coach college baseball, and every year we would go to the coaches conference, and all the new gadgets and
Mhm.
baseball stuff like that was out there was wild. It would fill a
Yeah.
convention hall, hundreds of people selling these things, and like, some were good, some were great, and some were, you're just like, who thinks of that?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, those avenues, I think, helps get exposure and helps put, Grid in a great space as far as getting people to see and understand what the sport is and that it is out there, but also, like, this is a professional sport. Like, it
Right.
takes professional athletes to be able to do this. And it's just crazy to me, just looking back on how much it's grown and the evolution of it. But obviously, you guys get back from Vegas, and there's, a couple regular season matches that determine the playoff seeding. Playoffs happen in Fort Lauderdale, and the Wild end up winning the 2024 championship. And I'll ask you both: was that something that you could see happening, or was it the Sharks to lose, or was it another team that you were like, man, they're in the zone right now, they're going to be tough to beat?
I I was not shocked that the Wild made it to the playoffs because they were great this season. But I was a little shocked when they won. I would have bet my money on the Sharks this year.
I said Wild from the minute we signed with the league. I was like, that's going to be a tough team to beat
Yeah.
because they were already good last year, and they added, in my opinion, they added just as many pieces from other teams without the publicity that the Sharks got.
Yeah.
So I thought they were a very, very good team. And then when the matches were revealed, what they were for the finale, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, the Wild are going to be tough to beat
Yeah.
on those.
That
They
was
were
a very
extremely weightlifting
yeah.
bias. I mean, made me very upset that I wasn't getting to go do them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like,
a
if I
very
like the matches, then the Wild should like the matches. Basically, they were a very dominant strength team. So.
Mhm.
Um, that I thought they stood a good shot. Now, I mean, execution wise, they faced a tough matchup in the Aces because the Aces do not typically make errors. Like
Yeah.
they just don't make errors. They're so well coached, and believe it or not, it was a clerical error that kind of kept them out of the
Mhm.
championship. So the Wild they got just enough. They had just enough talent to do what they needed to do, and they got, just as in sports, it always has to happen, they got just one or two lucky breaks to happen right where they needed them to get them over whatever adversity they would need. And then they were just a dominant force on the actual grid. Like
Yeah.
the actual races themselves, they were winning them, and they were winning them by
A lot. Yeah.
so,
It
yeah, they were very good. So,
when I looked at that championship, the race format, I thought to myself, I was like, man, this is very strength based. Like if you have some depth in the strength field, like you're gonna do well. And the wild, I talked to Mia and Jonathan, the owners, a couple weeks before the playoffs, and that was the one thing that they said was, we feel like we are very deep when it comes to strength. Top to bottom, very balanced as far as male and females and the capabilities and what they could do. But the strength aspect was what they felt as though they were, very deep in. And it's amazing that, weeks later you see like that, you got to have a little luck. And there you go. You get a little luck and the race like falls into your wheelhouse. And that's sport. That's how it rolls. But you can't discredit them for going out there and competing. But also, they put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs, and when you do that, you have opportunity to win.
They handle their business.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I guess the last thing that I want to get to is, Josh, are you what's the plan for 2025? Are you re-signing with the Breakers? What's going on?
Yeah, you may have seen some of my social media. It's pretty obvious we're coming back to the Breakers, I think. We are. I'm going to try to take a bit of an active leadership role with the team. The goal that we have right now is we now have 3 players that are currently myself, Shay, and Evan that are pretty committed to coming back from the Alabama area. We have a few prospects in this area that we think would be really, really good for Grid that we're working towards signing. And so our idea is to have essentially 2 centrally located camps of athletes, one of which being in Palm Beach area, East Coast Florida, and the other being here in the Shoals, Lower Tennessee, Higher Alabama, kind of this big network where we can have 2 training pods essentially. So we can train together. A lot of these teams, some of these teams had a huge, like I think there were teams, and I should say this in a way that doesn't offend from a talent perspective, but I think a team like the Tampa Bay Brigade was able to even overperform expectations because they could train together. I think it's a huge advantage. And that's not to say that they're not good. They were just even better than people expected them to be because they could train together all the time. They were able to have very good execution all year. They had very good game plans. They were able to do a lot of that. Teams like the Palms also train together a lot, and even the Wild train together. They're all located mostly in Atlanta, and they have a few, outskirt people. But those teams that can train together seem to be able to execute better on the grid. Now, while we can't get everybody in one place, maybe if we can have 2 centrally located groups to where we can practice together and train together and try to work on stuff, we can try to put those pieces together and at least make a pretty cohesive unit. So that's our idea. We're trying to pump it up. We've got a combine that we're doing in Alabama. As far as I know, yeah, January the 11th. As far as I know, it's going to be the first combine for Grid outside of
Florida.
outside of Florida since they launched into Florida Grid League. So this is going to be a big deal. Hopefully, we can get some people that, like, if they're in the Southeast, if they're, maybe they're a little far from Texas and a little far from Florida, and we can kind of grab some of those athletes who may or may not know if they can play Grid, but have always been, curious. Come try out the combine. We're looking for anybody. We want to see what you got. If you're exceptional at a certain skill, even that one skill, we want to see it. You never know. You might be somebody like Shay who finds yourself signing for one thing and then doing a lot of other things. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity to kind of push the sport while we're still a Florida team. In the background, we're pushing the envelope in like the Southeast a little bit too, hopefully. So
I like that idea. Like it just like makes sense. Like, okay, if we want to attract, if we're aware that players will come out of state and come play for certain teams outside of, where they live, then it only makes sense to have, training camps or combines or your own thing, for people to try out. Like, why not? Like you said, if you can have two camps, practicing simultaneously, but not having to do the remote thing. Because when I talked to Jess Kraisman of the Tampa Bay Brigade, she said one of the things that is difficult, and she had a couple players that were remote, like the
Mhm.
practicing end of a remote session is just, she's
It's
like,
so hard.
it's frustrating. They
Mhm.
don't hear you, you can't hear them, and like,
Yes.
We know all too
Yeah.
well.
and so I can only imagine like how, like, the difficulty, like, as great as technology is bridging the gap of distance, like it still doesn't help the communication aspect in
Mhm.
certain like
Right.
formats. Cause you know, could you imagine, like, and I'm sure you can imagine, like a race like Mirror,
Yeah, mirrors.
Oh,
where
yeah.
That's
like
what I was thinking.
how do you practice
Yep.
transitions with like you're gonna have to have somebody sub in as that person, and
Well,
like it's
I
just
think we
very
had, not to interrupt you, but I think we had a new person every
Every
single
single
race
mirror
doing
race.
mirror. So
wow.
every single race, we were in the back in the tiny
Going up.
warm up area that we are allotted,
Yeah.
trying to practice a transition. We had to teach Evan literally first match, which
Yeah.
was not good because I was also still had never done a mirror live, and
Yeah.
we were dealing with a 315-pound back squat bar.
Yeah.
So the hardest mirror to ever transition with, and we're having to teach Evan in the back with like a basically a 4x6 stall mat. And we're just like marching back and forth on it, trying to be like, all right, now you slide here and I'll slide here. And
Yeah.
I barely knew what I was doing. So I'm trying to like, so we've got credit to Josh Rundle. He was with our team in the beginning. He was in on that mirror, had no business having to be on that mirror. He's a bodyweight specialist. So he had to do those back squats and pick up that bar with us. And he was leading the way on that.
Yeah.
And we were the two blind mice, man. We were
Yeah.
just out there like we had
Oh
no idea. But that mirror is impossible. You cannot
yeah,
cannot remote train that.
Yeah.
it's
There's no way you can simulate it. You can put the bar in a rack. It's not the same thing as walking with it.
Hmm.
You don't get that feeling of that fatigue of like, okay, and your heart rate stays up when you're walking and transitioning the bar because there's pressure on you. Like it's there's no way to simulate that other than live. There just
yeah,
isn't. It's no way.
absolutely. Well, Shay, what about you? 2025, you coming back too?
Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
My plan is for this season to really actually not have to play. Like maybe we can get people that are way better than me, and then because if I'm like your fifth best person, we're doing pretty dang good for a team. So that's my goal for this year. I really truly don't want to have to play as much if I don't have to.
Hey, I feel you. That's how I would be.
Yeah.
I'm too damn old to be getting out there.
Me too. Me
If
too.
I was on a team and I was having to start a race, your team's not good. Like
Yeah, that's what
you
we
don't.
said. That's what we
And
said.
I mean, I love fitness. I love
Yeah.
CrossFit. I love everything about working out, and I wouldn't say that I'm bad necessarily at any of it, but I do know what my capabilities are, and
Right.
anything on the grid is outside of my capabilities.
Right.
I might could do a burpee, but that's about it. I'm not being able to burpee, into a pistol over a
Yeah.
pole. Like, nah,
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Um, you know, before you guys go, I want to throw a hypothetical out there. I like ending every episode with kind of a thinking question, just something fun to get you guys, on your way. So the hypothetical that I've been asking people is maybe one you've heard of, before, but it's very simple. You come across a book and you start picking up the book, you start reading through it, you get a few chapters in and you realize it's the story of your life from birth all the way up to current day where you're doing a podcast with me. The question of the hypothetical is this: if you realize that this is the story of your life, do you continue reading the book after you get to current day? So, would you want to know how your life ends?
Oh.
You know, I go first. I've been listening, so I've had a lot of time to think about this.
No fair. Any other question? I would love to be the person to say, no, I don't want to know. I will just stop reading. But I would absolutely read the entire book. I would read all of it. Because I'm such a control freak. I'm not going to be able to not know. And I also love, I love having events laid out, planned out. I'm going to read that entire book. I'm going to.
All right,
I would,
Josh.
So, like I said, I've had some time to think about this because I've heard you ask it a lot. I would flip immediately to the end and read maybe the last 2 pages or a page, skipping everything else in the middle just to the end. I don't care how I get there. I just want to know how much time I have. So
his answers are always so much better than mine.
I just want to know how much time I have. And I know the follow-up question, and you might be surprised with the answer for it too, but I only want to know, when does it all end? I don't want to know any of the stuff in the middle from the point where I'm at. I just need to know, what's my deadline. Maybe I'm that kind of guy. I'm like a procrastinator if I don't have a deadline. So I want to know,
absolutely.
I want to know what that deadline is. It's like, okay, all right, looks like I'm 77 when this last page hits. Maybe I could get some stuff done in here. And I know you can't change anything, but like, it might change my outlook on how I function if I know when that last day is.
You know, Shay, that tells you a lot about Josh's his education and schooling growing up. He was the kid that would grab the book and go straight to the end and say that he knows it all. He knows it all.
Yes.
You know, obviously with a follow-up to the question, Shay, if you don't know, it's like, if you get to present day and you realize there's only 2 pages left, like, do you still read the book? But it seems to me like it doesn't matter if there's 2 pages left. He's going to go to the very end and figure it out. So
now see,
yeah,
if there's only 2 pages left, I'm not reading it.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's been the opposite of every single other person that has been in it. Like, if I see that there's a very limited amount left, I'm putting the book down, immediately going to do whatever I want to do in my life. Like, not reading it. I don't care when it's going to happen. I'm about to go do like everything I've ever wanted to do and empty my bank account or give it to her, like whatever we need to do. Like, I gotta go get my affairs in order. But if there was a lot, I only want to know the end. But if the end is pretty near, I don't want to know it at all. Like, I don't want to know a deadline if it's coming tonight. Basically, like, I only want to know the deadline like far enough in advance to get some stuff done. So
if it's soon, it's like, all right, what danger can I go get into so I can live life to the fullest? But
exactly.
I'm the type of person where like I want to read the last page, even if it is like 2 pages left. I want to know because I want to try and like change it. Like, I want to be like, all right, well, I know.
It, though. You can't change it.
I want to try to avoid whatever it says happens on the last page.
I'm just going to go straight to the gym and try to like deadlift 800 pounds and clean and jerk 400. Like, I hope that I just want to spend the rest of the time in the gym so that I die lifting. Like, I'm going to alternatively fix it to where it's like, well, he died trying to deadlift 800 pounds. It's like, it's
the answer of a true strength specialist.
Going out on my sword, baby. Like,
he died doing what he loved.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to spend his last 2 days with his wife and dog. He just wants to be in
You'd be there too. I'd bring you along.
Well, guys, I appreciate you joining us. I'll let you guys run. Obviously, I hope you guys have a great, successful 2025 season. Happy holidays to y'all. If there's anything I can do for y'all along the way, let me know. And depending on how the season goes, we'll bring you back on and we'll talk about it.
I think we will get to speak differently about Beach Breakers next year.
Things are looking up. Keep an eye out
it's
on
the
us.
year of the Breakers. Watch out, everybody.
Yeah.
Catch the wave, guys. Catch the wave.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, man.
Appreciate it. That's Josh and Shay Newell, everybody. If you like hearing their story or you just like hearing us average Joes talk X's and O's, please like and share the podcast on Facebook. Retweet us on Twitter. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. As always, go over to YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, hit notifications. That way, when content is uploaded, you can be the first one to check it out. We'll be back tonight. We're going to talk Oklahoma gymnastics with Kelsey Slade. I mean, Oklahoma is going to be dominating. I'm saying it right here, and everybody can know this, and you can put the comments and the hate rhetoric out there on this, but Oklahoma is going to win another national championship. Last year was a fluke. It's all about them. This year, I'm telling you, with what they got coming back and the new pieces in store, like they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. So good episode tonight. See y'all tonight. We are out. This has been the In Off the Bench podcast, a grit and grind show. As always, remember, strong body, sharp minds, grit and grind all the time. We are out.